I, 24 female, am a few weeks pregnant and the father is my husband Caden, 28. We're currently separated and I'm not on speaking terms with most of my family except for my uncle Jerry, 55, and Aunt Anne, 51. The rest of my family has no contact. Here's why I'm separated from Caden. He went on a trip with my brother Arthur, 28, my cousin Trevor, 21 male, and Uncle Jerry. They planned a week-long getaway, booking 2 hotel rooms. Arthur and Trevor shared one room and Caden and Jerry shared the other. Everything was fine until the 5th night. That evening they all went to a bar together, except for Uncle Jerry, where they met some girls and decided to bring them back to the hotel. While Jerry was out getting pizza, the others headed back with the girls. When Jerry returned, he walked into Arthur and Trevor's room, finding them with 2 girls doing things. Enraged, he kicked the girls out. Then, when Jerry went back to his own room, he found Caden with a naked girl. Jerry just yelled at him and kicked the girl out, then left the room and the hotel. Uncle started walking toward his car. He could hear them calling after him, but he kept going. They eventually caught up with him near his car, begging him to keep this a secret. They all tried to excuse their behavior, saying it was one last chance to have fun before returning to their regular lives. Caden even cried, begging Jerry not to tell me. Jerry said no to keeping it a secret, telling them he couldn't lie to me and that I was like a daughter to him. I doubt they'd ever have told me if Jerry hadn't caught them. They'd have taken their secret to their graves. When Jerry got home, he called me and told me everything. I was devastated and confronted Caden. He tried to blame me, saying I'd been neglecting him and he just wanted to have fun. Things got heated and we ended up yelling at each other. He called me some terrible names and said I was an abuser, and I just left, staying at my grandmother's house. For the next few days, I avoided everyone. Honestly, it was one of the most peaceful times, just staying with my grandmother. My grandmother was unaware of the situation and what was going on anyway. Then I woke up one morning and found Caden, my mom, Arthur and Trevor waiting for me in my grandmother's dining room. I felt so much tension in the house. I did sit at the dining room. My mom spoke first and insisted I should forgive Caden, saying, all men make mistakes and we women should forgive and move on. I replied, that's a great crap excuse that men can't take responsibility for their selfish actions and thinking. Arthur and Trevor tried to apologize, but I ignored them. Caden tried to hold my hand and I slapped it away. He tried to talk his way out of the situation. It was just embarrassing at this point. I was so over it. My grandmother did catch on to the situation and she was livid, especially at my own mother. She immediately kicked them out and told them they weren't welcome until they got their crap together. I was grateful to have my grandmother. My grandmother said I could stay however long I wanted, and honestly I didn't want to bring any more drama or stress into her house. I thought it was best for me to step away for a while. Since then, I've been staying with Uncle Jerry and Aunt Anne, the only people who supported me in all this. I've also told my best friend, Leal, 25 female, about everything, and she's been incredibly supportive. She even offered to let me move out of state with her and her wife. At this point, I feel like just packing up and going. Honestly, I want to start fresh without telling anyone except maybe Jerry, Anne, my grandmother, and our mutual friends who are on my side. I've been keeping my pregnancy a secret even from my uncle and aunt because I'm afraid that Trevor might find out and tell Caden. Trevor and Caden are really close and I can't risk them knowing. The thought of leaving without telling my family and keeping my pregnancy from them feels right, given how they all sided with Caden. It still hurts me so bad how my brother and cousin would try to hide something like this from me, considering how close we all were growing up. Now I don't know who they are anymore. On top of that, my other cousins and my other aunt and uncle, not Anne or Jerry, all agreed I should forgive Caden and move on. It's shocking to me that everyone is on his side when I've been hurt by all this. I honestly just want a fresh start. So, am I the idiot if I just packed up and moved out of state without anyone in my family knowing? Not the idiot. I'm a man. I've never even been tempted to cheat. I find the very act pathetic. If he really felt neglected, he should have manned up instead of cheating. If he cheated that time, what would stop him from doing that again? I hate people like them because they don't realize how lucky they are to have what they do and just risk losing it. If OP is only 6 weeks, she could claim she doesn't know yet, get the divorce rolling, suddenly find out she's pregnant at 4 months, personal experience. Hopefully, depending on where you live, the divorce will be done before the miraculous discovery, and still tell no one. You owe no one anything. Get settled, get a job, whatever, and then find out you're pregnant. However, you need to think ahead. There's no way you can keep a child's secret forever. Do you want to be associated with your ex forever? It'll be easier from afar, but you will still have to answer questions at some point. Listen, OP, I had a baby with a man like this, and all he did was use my son as a pawn until he couldn't, and then dropped him like a sack of potatoes. He will rinse and repeat the cycle, as mine did, until he gets bored and/or moves on. My son has severe attachment issues and struggles with being a man. Do with that what you will. Good luck. I, 24 female, have a kindergarten-aged son named Sam. I had my son at a very young age, as did his father John, with whom I have a healthy relationship. John is American, I'm not, so we got married when I got pregnant so we could all live here in the US. My family wasn't happy with my pregnancy and pretty much shut me out of their lives. John's parents happily accepted me, but they're very old and all the responsibility of caring for Sam falls on us, which means no nights off, frequent dates and nothing that generally can't involve Sam. The responsibility falls especially on me since I take care of the household while John works long shifts. 6 months ago, my mother called to tell me my sister was getting married. During a video call, my sister asked me to be her maid of honor, which I excitedly accepted. However, when I received the invitation, problems arose. The wedding was to be in my country and each guest had to cover their travel, lodging and clothing expenses. John offered to work overtime so that Sam and I could go, and after months of extra work I managed to buy a nice dress and book a simple hotel room. A month before the wedding, I called my sister to confirm our attendance, and that's when she informed me that children were not allowed at the ceremony. I told her that wasn't specified on the invitation, it literally wasn't written anywhere on the invitation, and she said she hoped everyone would just take that for granted. I explained that I didn't have anyone to leave Sam with, and reminded her of our financial situation, and she suggested leaving him with John or hiring a nanny. John works long shifts, and we don't have the budget for a nanny for so many days just for a wedding. She compared the situation to when I hired a nanny during my father's hospitalization, which seemed pretty stupid to me since it was a medical emergency and not a social event. After an argument, I told her I would have to decline my role as bridesmaid since I couldn't leave my son. I want to clarify that I never asked her to make an exception for Sam, because I understand that weddings are not places for children. LOL. I'm not an idiot, just a person who doesn't take things for granted. I just wanted her to understand my situation after I told her I couldn't go. She called me selfish and mentioned that she'd already paid for my place at the wedding. I offered to reimburse her with the money for the dress, but she just hung up. Now there are 2 weeks left until the wedding, but I keep getting messages from her, calls to insult me and emails arguing that since I live in the US, I should have enough money for a babysitter, which, at least in my opinion, is totally ridiculous. I got the money back for the dress and the hotel, and I plan to give it back to John unless my sister claims it to cover the wedding expenses, but if she doesn't, well, I don't know if I should offer it to her again. I'm going to be real, I don't think the wedding is child-free. I think, based on the fact OP's family shut her out when she got pregnant and are just now opening lines of communication, that something is going on. It's like they're trying to trap OP in their home country, away from her child and spouse. I don't know. I'm not saying that's what's going on, but something is definitely off in my opinion. Definitely not the idiot. Stay home. My guess, and I feel gross saying this, is that her family thinks OP got pregnant to have an anchor baby. Again, I feel gross saying this, and then used that pregnancy to get married to become a US citizen and assumes that she must now be wealthy, so she can't bring the source of the shame, her child, and they find it implausible that OP cannot afford to attend by herself. OP hired a nanny when her father was ill, and that convinced her sister that OP had money, which is why OP was asked to be the maid of honor. It also explains the sister's complaints about the dress and her specific reference to OP living in the US and having money. OP's family thinks she has more money than she does. It would have been perfectly fine for the sister not to want her very young nephew at the ceremony. However, she should have looked for a babysitter for the day and welcomed her nephew for a visit. OP couldn't do that from another country. OP, your sister is not someone I would travel so far and spend so much money to support. Better start a college fund for your son. Much better than wasting the money to see someone who just wants to be mean. So I, 28 female, have a younger sister, Emily, 25, who's been with her high school sweetheart, Jake, since she was a young teen. They dated all through high school and college, and honestly, they were the epitome of a perfect couple. Jake was always so thoughtful, he'd surprise her with gifts, plan elaborate dates, and he lit up whenever she was around. They even talked about getting married. Fast forward to a few months ago. Emily cheated on Jake and broke up with him to be with her affair partner, Mark. Since then, she's been complaining about how Mark doesn't do any of the romantic things Jake used to do. Apparently, he doesn't surprise her with gifts, and their dates are pretty lackluster compared to what she had with Jake. Last week, while I was on the phone with her, she started venting about how she feels unsatisfied with her new relationship. I don't know what came over me, but I just burst out laughing. I mean, she cheated on the guy who worshipped the ground she walked on, and now she's complaining about the new guy not measuring up? It just sounded so absurd to me. Emily got upset and told me I was being insensitive. I tried to explain that I wasn't laughing at her pain, but it felt like poetic justice given how she treated Jake. Now she's barely talking to me, and I'm starting to feel bad. Am I the idiot for laughing at my sister's relationship troubles when she cheated on someone who treated her like a queen? Not the idiot. She destroyed a near-perfect relationship to be with someone who barely cares. She brought this upon herself. Sounds like poetic justice to me, too. It's also crazy she sees the laughing as insensitive but not the cheating. It sounds like she's oblivious to any feelings other than her own. I don't think she saw Jake as someone she didn't want to lose. He was her first serious boyfriend, and she took for granted that he was just treating her the way any man would. Then she got more excitement from her affair, stupidly assumed the affair partner would be as good a boyfriend as Jake, it's just what men do, and chose the affair partner over Jake. She was happy to lose Jake because she didn't realize Jake was anything special. Now she's realizing that not all men will treat her as well as Jake did. Karma bit her in the behind big time, and she's responsible for her own actions. My family is conservative. I have my own opinions, but I always keep my mouth shut. I just avoid my family for the most part. My brother, 20, still lives at home, and well, ever since he was a kid, he's always been more out there. He's very open-minded and artistic as well, so he's always making our parents and sisters angry. He was a good volleyball player in high school, but quit his senior year just to spite our parents, so I'm sure you can tell what kind of guy he is. But he's the only boy, so our parents keep letting it go. Anyway, he recently acted in some silly amateur film for one of his friends. In it, he kisses a boy. I genuinely don't care. The film wasn't a secret and was posted publicly, so someone we know came across it and it was sent to our parents, who kicked him out. My younger sister and her husband offered to take him in, but my brother left not even a week later because our brother-in-law was being an idiot to him about the film. Now no one knows where he is and everyone's angry and worried. I only know he's alive because he's texted me a few times. Mom calls the whole family over almost every day to play the blame game, and yesterday it was my turn, and she was basically saying that as the oldest, I didn't do my job and led him astray because I failed as a sister or some crap. I got so angry that I told her to shut up and that this was her fault more than mine. It doesn't sound like a huge deal, but it's super disrespectful in our family, so everyone was upset with me for yelling at Mom and breaking her heart even more after what my brother did. I told them to stop acting like victims and that they better pray he decides to see any of us again, and left. I feel better, but the entire family is angry with me, especially now that my brother isn't around to take their anger. I wish I could run away too, but unfortunately I have responsibilities tying me here, so I'm wondering if I'm the idiot and if I should apologize. Am I the idiot for yelling at my mom after my brother ran away? Not the idiot. Some truths need to be spoken. In a perfect world, you may have been able to convey the message more calmly, but that is rare. Truthfully, your parents sound immature and unhealthy. You may want to consider going low contact or no contact with them. If you continue to entertain their behavior, they're never going to change. I grew up in a similar household. I doubt they'll ever accept responsibility for chasing your brother out. Your mom especially. She's way too focused on putting her wrongdoings on others. Good for you for standing up for yourself and your brother. It will be important to keep in contact with your brother and support him when he eventually needs it. More than likely, your actions will make their way around to your brother, and I'm sure he will appreciate it. Can a 20-year-old run away? Considering he's over 18, I don't think so. Stop infantilizing him. He's an adult. What he does with his life is his business. That's not running away, it's pronounced leaving. However, you are the idiot. You don't talk to your mom that way. She is distraught and probably can't function properly and doesn't realize what she's saying. My husband Ronan, 32, and I, 29 female, have one toddler daughter. We've always had very clear and well-established parenting that works well for her and us. Enter my in-laws. Just prior to having our daughter, we began to see them more frequently, probably around 10 times a month, whereas before then it would be maybe once or twice, because Ronan has a reasonably strained relationship with them, particularly his mom. For context, this is because she was one of those people who couldn't let him have his own privacy, constantly looking through his room, asking where, when, with who he was going, even into his late teens and things like that. He never completely cut contact, but they've been better since we had our daughter, and he didn't want to completely cut them out of being grandparents. They've always had a different approach to discipline than we do, another reason why Ronan has a strained relationship, and it's very shouty and punishment-based. Raised voices, very tough love, while we tend to prefer calm discussions, occasional timeouts and natural consequences. Our daughter's a pretty good kid though. She doesn't tend to act out a lot and usually is more than happy just doing her own thing. Yesterday we went to see his parents and she had a tantrum over her granddad, who was taking her favourite toy from her because she's too old for it now. Before I could step in, Ronan's mom had raised her voice and said, "Behave or else." I tried to remain calm with the situation and told them that we don't discipline her that way and asked that they leave any disciplinary actions to Ronan and me to deal with. They were offended and said that we were coddling her and that their methods were tried and true. They also accused us of being too soft and not knowing what we were doing. Ronan stepped in and said that it was our daughter and we'd raised her how we believed best. We left shortly after this and his in-laws thought that I was overreacting and that I was the problem. I just want what's best for our daughter. So am I the idiot for not letting them discipline our daughter? You're not the idiot. You see your in-laws too often. Why would they believe they can decide she's too old for her favourite toy? They always overstep with your husband, and now they're overstepping with your kid. Stop putting your kids in a position to be stolen from, yelled at and treated poorly. It sounds like they're unwilling to acknowledge that their strained relationship with their son is directly connected to their tried and true disciplinary methods. They also seem unwilling to demonstrate respect for you and your husband as the parents and protectors of your child, who can decide upon and manage discipline when and as needed. None of that makes you an idiot. You handled the situation well. I'm sorry your in-laws aren't good. To stop the cycle, stop the visits. Period.